have with us 3 LAER agents who are all consistently doing business that's well into the low millions of dollars. So we see million plus, sometimes a 2 million plus. I know Matt has done a $6 million plus listing. So we'll start first with Matt. Tell the audience a little bit about your business, what area you do, and how you ended up in doing luxury sales.
Well, I started in real estate about 17 years ago, but it's more of a story of kind of 2 careers. I started in commercial real estate appraising, and then foolishly, too quickly, started to open up a residential brokerage with an old family friend, and quickly realized didn't know what we were doing. We had some agents working for us. The market crashed, went back to grad school, reevaluated things, and then I think I really started my real estate career the way that I should have in 2016. Moved to Duxbury from Boston and got a real estate coach, and then met Stacey a couple years later, and we opened up the Duxbury office, or I helped her open up the Duxbury office, I should say, just before COVID. And shortly before that, I was working with a lot of higher network clients, but we started using a lot of the coaching strategies that I was taught to go after that more high-end clientele and kind of use listings to get into that market. And then, so now I'm office in Duxbury, but my network is kind of all over. So my first couple $1 million properties sold was actually in Beverly, but I was living in Duxbury, so that commute was pretty interesting. And then sold properties in the Cape, Martha's Vineyard, licensed in New Hampshire, so kind of all over Eastern Mass.
All right, great stuff. Mona, out of our Burlington office, tell us a little bit about your history in the business.
So I've been in the business about 18 years, and this is actually my 9th brokerage. Not that I'm proud of it, but I got to learn a little bit about every business, small businesses like boutique shops. And then obviously I'm very happy at LAER. I do have my broker's license. So I was considering starting my own brokerage and just doing something on my own. And then I realized I need to be around people and part of something bigger. And I love the business. I also flip houses on the side. I have investment properties. So I love everything about it. And I have a team. And I feel like since I started the team, it's been very helpful because, again, I like being surrounded with other people that enjoy the business as well.
That's great. And then we have Janice Sullivan out of our North Reading office, a legacy in the business, I think, like a legend, I should say. Tell us about your business.
Thank you. Okay, so I have been a full-time realtor since 1985. And when you mentioned the number of brokerages, I started at Carlson in Reading and worked at RE/MAX for 18 years before I met Stacey. And about 20 years ago, I started my team because I realized the value of being surrounded by like-minded people and that I could only be in one place at a time. I have built my business and continue to focus on deepening relationships with the people who know, like, and trust me. And it was funny listening to Tom use those exact words because I feel like I spend 100% of my time working on relationships with my clients, with my people, with everyone who already knows me. And about 90% of my business is people that know me by referral or past clients. So right now I have a very small team. There's only 2 full-time realtors that work with me. And the 3 of us are a force to be reckoned with, I would say.
Absolutely. Janice, how often do you list $1 million plus property, and what is your highest sale?
So when you asked me that question before, I thought I was going to say not very often. And I looked back, and in 2022, we listed or sold 12 properties between $1 million and $2 million, which is 20% of our business. Mm-hmm. Personally, my highest listing sale price was $4 million.
Okay, and then how about you, Mona? How many $1 million properties, or how often do you list $1 million properties, and what has been your highest sale?
So right now, my highest sale would be 2.3 million. I do have a listing coming on that should be 3 million in the next week or so. But I would say that 80% of my business is above $1 million. My listing average is usually 800 to say 1.6, and a lot of it new construction.
Okay.
But where my business is in mostly like Arlington, say Cambridge, Somerville, where the listing price is always on the higher side. So it's very common for me to have listings over $1 million.
Okay. And then Matt, how many $1 million properties, or how often do you list $1 million plus properties? And what's your highest sale?
I'd say we probably sell about $5 or $6 million plus properties a year. But for example, in 21, my lowest sale was a listing that I helped someone sell for $340,000, and then I had a listing at $6.5 million. So kind of all over the spectrum, but our average sale is probably $900,000. So we're always teetering on kind of that $1 million range.
Matt, what do you think luxury home sellers look for in an agent?
Well, they are, they're not looking for necessarily one specific thing, but when you go to a listing appointment, they're looking for either obviously experience. That's kind of probably how you got in front of them. Confidence, preparation, and really a plan. They want to know that you know exactly what you're doing and that you can show them and explain to them exactly what you're going to do from the minute you leave their house to, the minute that that property's sold. That you have a team of people to work with as far as, inspectors, photography, stagers, everything. And that you're not just going to take a couple pictures, take their word for what they want to sell it for, put it on MLS, have an open house, and hope for the best,
Because, by the way, there are agents that are still doing that, even in $1 million plus price range. How about you, Mona? What do you think luxury home sellers are looking for in an agent?
I think it's important that you have experience. They want to know that you've sold other luxury listings and to actually see that it's happened and, to be in the business for a long time. I feel like when I first started, I didn't have the confidence, and now I'm not bothered by it, whether it's a higher price listing or a lower price listing. I really treat everyone the same. But they definitely want to know that you have the experience and the confidence.
And then how about you, Janice? What do you think sellers are looking for?
I think that sellers in any price range should be looking for the same thing. Someone with skills, someone that can guide them, an advocate, someone they trust, and whose advice they will take. So they have to look for someone who is experienced, who knows, the right things to do in order to get the highest return on investment. But, they should have somebody that they know is going to work with them, for them, and, get them what they want. But I think that every seller wants the same thing, whether they have a $340,000 property or a $2 million property. They should be looking for the same thing, a skilled person.
All three of you are Diamond Club producers, meaning you're at the highest level of our organization doing multi-million dollars in sales each year. And you go head to head with some of the major brands out there, such as like a Sotheby's, for example. And you guys win listings going up against these brands. And sometimes when they're on a listing appointment, they say, you need to be with a global brand, that your customer is going to come from China. Do you guys agree with that? Let's start with you, Matt.
No, I don't necessarily agree that you have to have a global brand, but you have to kind of come across that your network is bigger than it is, or as big as it possibly can be. Yes, LAER isn't Sotheby's, who might have, offices all over the world.
Goodness.
And exactly. That's why we're here. But, when you're talking about reach, you can say, well, there's 900 agents all over the East Coast. And, we have a reach all over the country through our different networks. And I'm also involved in a coaching company that has fellow students all over the country. And so you can just kind of still spread it out to nationwide and international experience where you don't need a global brand because they're really hiring you. They're not necessarily hiring your company, which your company will always have your back. But, well, with us at least.
Yes. How about you, Mona?
I feel like it used to be a big deal. I think maybe when I worked at a much smaller company, they would say, I've never heard of your company. But now it's changed because I've in between companies have moved, obviously, several times. And sometimes my clients don't even know what company I'm at, and or whoever I'm interviewing with. They don't really care. They care more about the agent. And I focus on telling them what I do differently than other agents. And I mean, I literally help people basically renovate their home before putting on the market. And I feel like a lot of companies don't do that. So I basically ask, you know, what do you think that they do different? And just always explain how you're hiring me and not, say, LAER or any other company. It's about the agent in the end.
How about you, Janice? You worked for a company that was a global brand.
I did. And I would say it's absolutely not necessary because they are hiring me, not the company as much, especially with designated agency. And if someone is sitting in China looking for real estate here, they can still see my listings. They don't need to have someone that's an international brand. You just reminded me of something and now I forgot. But yeah, I definitely don't feel that that's necessary because they're hiring you for your skills and your abilities, and we can reach anywhere. I know what I was going to say. In my 38-year career, I haven't had anybody come from that far away to buy any of my listings. And I tell them that. Said most of the people are moving locally. Some of them are relocating across our country. We can reach them all. And I say, if you're on a business trip and you're in, you know, Taiwan and you're searching for a home in North Reading, you can still see the listings that I represent.
Yes. Very interested in knowing what a listing appointment looks like, because I agree, all three of you have done lower price listings and your listings shine, like on MLS, the marketing. It doesn't matter if it's a $200,000 property or a $2 million property. But I'm very interested, like, what are you selling at the listing appointment? What does the actual appointment look like? We'll start with you, Janice.
Okay. My listing appointment looks the same for everyone. Before I go, I usually send them some information about me. If it's somebody I don't know, it's my bio, along with some examples of my marketing. If it's someone that already knows me, I still send them examples of my marketing because I want to separate me from the person they know at the park or the baseball field or going to school with one of their kids. This is the professional me. So I always treat every appointment, even if it's someone I've known for 40 years. This is my business, and I'm happy that you've called me to represent you. So I send them all that stuff ahead of time. And that way, when I show up, I can ask them if they have any questions about the things that I've sent them, or if they have any questions about me representing them. And a lot of times people are shocked that I ask them that question, like before I see the house, but I do.
And I think one thing that you do differently than many real estate agents, because oftentimes there's a lag time between when you meet them and when you actually list the property. You don't give them a definite list price, I don't think, at the list appointment.
No. I don't even show them the CMA. So when I go to a listing appointment, I bring a CMA, but I feel very strongly that they should be hiring a person not based on price or commission. So I have that conversation with them, and I say, you should hire someone that you feel is going to represent you the best they can. And I want to be that person. And once they hire me, then we discuss the price together. And sometimes months go by in preparation before a house is ready for market. So before I leave the house, I'll leave them the CMA and I'll tell them, I keep my hand on it because they always reach for it and they start going through it. And I take it back and I pull it back and I say, I'm not going to let you go through this now. I'm going to leave it with you along with some other material. But I don't get caught up in, you know, this house is like yours and it's sold for this much. If I have to go through it a little bit, if they have specific questions, but I almost never go over CMA on a listing appointment.
So I've seen your listing agreement. Oftentimes they're TBD because it's not coming on the market for several months and the price in there is TBD. And I think that's going to surprise many people here who feel like I have to have a price in there before I can even ask them to sign it. But in reality, you don't.
Right. Almost 100% of the time, my listing, they hire me first and then we figure out the price together. So it always says TBD. And then I try to go back and make sure I fill it in before that property goes on the market, because I do feel like it's supposed to be there. But for me, it's always TBD.
All right. How about you, Mona? What does a listing appointment look like?
So aside from the obvious market analysis, as we shouldn't be saying anymore, what is he calling it? An equity? I'll always say market analysis because I'm comfortable with it. Aside from that, and basically going through like what you have in the forms for what we do for our listing, I go through all of that. But I also print out an input form from MLS, whether it's a condo, a single family, and I ask them every single question about their house because nobody does that. I know they don't. And how can you really do a market analysis unless you know everything about their house, every single upgrade? And then I say, I need to go through this information and get back to you. And then obviously, depending on when we list it, the price will change, but I can give you an idea. Now, I do like to do everything in the first meeting because I think it's important, but I do get back to them on a price. And I do leave a market analysis based on what the comps are like, but I hadn't seen their house already. So I think that really helps. And then they appreciate that you took the time to go through everything and that you know everything about their house. Otherwise, most people just walk around, they look at everything and then they leave. And I think it's impossible to come up with a real value.
All right. Matt, I've had the pleasure of attending a listing appointment with you. And what I didn't expect when we showed up at a $6 million property is a huge binder with all kinds of charts and spreadsheets. So I'm super interested to hear, like, what does a listing appointment look like for you?
Well, yeah, the listing appointment kind of starts the minute that I know that the meeting's even going to happen. I try to put together a binder as, jam-packed as possible with every piece of information about the property, whether it's, field cards, assessor maps, zoning maps, past sales. Maybe if it's in a flood zone, I'll go to the town hall and figure out exactly what could be developed on the property. Everything. So when you get to the property itself and you're walking around with the property owner, you're going to know just as much, if possibly not more than they do about the property itself. So I like to have all that there because really nobody shows up with that. So they're kind of like, wow, you've obviously done your homework in addition to, okay, we can maybe get down to the nitty gritty instead of going into some details about them explaining to me what the regulations are for specific areas or whatever it may be. But then, prior to the actual listing appointment, I always email the seller, whether it's even a good friend of mine, because I try to keep it professional at least for a couple days if it's a good friend. But, if it's a referral or somebody that, I was recently introduced to, I like to send them what we call a new listing plan of action, which has a bio about myself, about the company, about the kind of over-the-top features and kind of things that we offer to all of our exclusive seller clients. And then it also includes some of my past sales and testimonials. But you send them that the day before, you can skip over some of that when you get there because it goes step by step in our whole selling process. But oftentimes you'll get to the listing appointment and they've already made the decision that they want to work with you. They don't typically show that card right away, but again, it just kind of takes a lot of that introductory awkwardness, if there is, out of the way. And then on top of that, you show up with the binder and then you look at the property. And then, I rarely do a CMA. I might have one, but it's without being at the property and seeing it in advance. You don't really know how to accurately price it. So we do often get to pricing, and my goal is to leave there with, an agreement on, whether I'm going to sell their property or not. But yeah, getting to that number is difficult in that first step. But.
So on the listing that I went on with you, you had like a spreadsheet. It wasn't like a toolkit CMA or one of those. It was like a spreadsheet that you sat and figured out stuff.
Yeah, so that was a very unique property. It was a $6.5 million property in Martha's Vineyard. There were very few comps. So, I had maps that had the most recent sales and a spreadsheet that kind of took the valuation from looking at it from a bunch of different aspects. I could do a lot of research on that particular property, so that made it a little bit easier other than actually being inside. But you kind of just got to be prepared for any question they might throw at you or any objection, really, is the more important thing you want to avoid. But yeah.
all of you guys have really beautiful marketing, professional photography, staging in many cases. And how do you show that in your listing presentation? Like, is it something that you leave behind? Do you have like a marketing package that spells it out? We'll start with you, Janice.
I send a lot of it ahead of time. Okay. So before I arrive, I might send, 3 to 5 videos of properties similar to theirs that are professionally photographed, professionally staged. And again, whether it's $1 million listing or an $800,000 listing, I feel like I can turn an $800,000 listing into $1.2 million if they do the right things. So I always, almost 100% of the time, insist on professional staging. If they don't believe in it, sometimes I'll offer them a concierge service where I'll pay for it and I'll get it back at the closing. Sometimes I'll pay for it myself. And I just did that on a property that's not yet closed. And after they got the results of their 19 offers, they said, okay, we get it. We want to pay for the staging now. And that happens a lot. So there's a huge difference in professionally preparing a house, whether it's having it professionally cleaned, which I have paid for myself, because I feel like when you come into one of my listings, it's a reflection on me. And I don't want the trash. I don't want the diaper pail. I don't want the dirty, crappy landscaping. So occasionally I have marketed a property like that and people go, this does not look like your listing, because I always present a really, really nice property. And sometimes it takes months, whether it's painting, but I say to the seller, I never ask them to do anything which they won't get a huge return on. And I use 10 times. And I think it's at least that, whether it's painting, cleaning, storing things, getting professionally staged property, things in. But a lot of times they don't see it. They think their house is perfect. And it takes a lot of convincing. But I'm not afraid to give them advice. And a lot of agents, I feel, will just tell them what they want to hear to get the signature. And then they don't get the results they want. But with me, they're like, well, you were right. And I love that. This is music to my ears.
And then Mona, how do you articulate the marketing that you're doing?
So, the same type of thing. I always do floor plans. I try to do drone, professional photography. And then I always offer, I will give them options, because I have had clients say to me, I do not want to do anything. And in that case, it does make people feel uncomfortable. So I would offer to say, have the house cleaned. But for the most part, people do realize the value in it. And I basically say to them, this is why people make money flipping houses, because they refinish the floors, they do fresh paint, and I have a team of people that can do everything. So whether it's a landscaper, a painter, just a handyman to come in and do all of it. And I offer to pay for it. And then they pay me back at closing. And I've done that at least probably 10 to 15 times. And I've spent up to $30,000. Actually painting a whole house, redoing all the floors, adding granite countertops.
Mona bought a house last year. I told her she was crazy. It was like a $900,000 house that didn't sell. And
it was my listing.
Yeah, it was her listing.
It was under agreement. And then they found out that the pool was filled in and they didn't pull a permit. So I basically said, I had known this family for 25 years. I said, if it doesn't sell, we have your house under agreement and I don't want you to lose it, then I will buy it. And then 2 of my girlfriends offered to help me with, Debbie being one of them, Debbie on my team. So we flipped it and everybody was happy and it worked out. So yes, I do offer to buy the house if it doesn't sell, because I haven't had a house yet I haven't sold. So
yes. And then Matt, anything you want to add to how to articulate your marketing?
I usually send videos as well. We have a great video team that we use, drone and interior, exterior video. But also as part of that plan of action, which I leave them a hard copy behind after the listing presentation, there's a couple pages in there that say, above and beyond. And it shows work that I'm willing to do myself, immediately after they sign the listing agreement. And it shows like a rusty old mailbox and a brand new one and the front of a house painted, and, it was before and after. And so they're like, what do you mean you do this stuff? I'm like, no, I'll be over tomorrow. They're like, what are you talking about? And then the next morning I come over in my truck, the back is full of mulch. I'm, painting their shutters and, leaf blowing and trimming their hedges. And then if it gets a little out of control and I realize I haven't made any progress in 6 hours, then I'm like, okay, we need to hire some landscaping. But oftentimes I can get it all done, over a couple days or a week on my own, and they appreciate it. They don't just sit around typically watch you. They're now cleaning the interior of the house and packing that you want them to be doing anyway, but you can't watch them do it. But if you're there, maybe they're more incentivized to do it on their own. So, yeah.
Okay, my last question for each of you. Matt, we'll start with you. Any technology, like I know there's companies out there like LuxVT, virtual staging companies. If you guys could share any tools that you're using to help enhance your listings. Start with you, Matt.
Again, we work with a great, photography team, but on top of that, we've worked with, I work with Box Brownie, which is boxbrownie.com. They do a lot of virtual staging. I think it's a company out of Australia, but they'll get you back like mocked up images that are fantastic in about 24 hours, and they're pretty inexpensive. I have not dabbled in AI, but they helped me write a couple really long property descriptions for, the really high-end homes that I don't want to just throw around a bunch of fluff words, like, as you read in a lot of MLS descriptions. So, other than that, Wise Pelican for postcards, BombBomb for emails, but specifically for luxury listings, it's just, we tell our clients, you got to nail the price and the photography and the videos. And then, those are the best things to focus on.
What happens if they don't want to nail it on price? What do you say?
Well, that's, you kind of ask them where they got their pricing strategy from. One thing I always bring is this, a sheet that has the AVMs, which is the automated valuation model prices. Those are Zestimates and Redfin, Realtor.com. And you say, okay, you think Zillow priced your property right at $2 million. Well, Realtor.com has it at $1.2 million and Redfin has it at 1.4. As you can see right here, there's a big, differential right there. So, we got to talk about this, and hopefully you can put them in the buyer's shoes and show them some comps and get them down a bit.
Yes. And then Mona, any technology that you absolutely depend on?
I mean, aside from photography and floor plans, not really. I'm an old lady.
Mm-hmm. And then
I've used Box Brownie, but honestly, I wasn't that happy with it. I used it only a few times, and I felt like the pictures looked like fake furniture. I would prefer to see it. Yeah, it just, but it didn't. I've seen some that look great, but I wasn't happy with them. Maybe the colors, but anyways.
And then what happens if your seller wants to overprice? Do you take it?
No, I pick them up and I bring them to the competition. And then I tell them, do you think your house is worth more than this? And why? Because they need to see it. They don't actually go and see. I mean, that's the only way for them to really realize. And yes, I'll take it if it's a little overpriced, but not $1 million overpriced. And if they really still want to try it, I mean, the market is a little crazy right now. Houses are selling overpriced all the time. So I'd say I'll overprice it in the beginning, and then in 2 weeks, if no one comes, then we need a price reduction. And if you don't agree to it, then I'm not wasting my time, because it's a waste of my time and your time.
Yes. And then Janice, any technology companies you're working with?
Yep. So love the professional photography. Always use floor plans, especially unless it's a really basic house. I always use floor plans. I use video. I use drone. But in a really big house, especially one that is vacant or partially vacant, I will use virtual staging. I will insist on staging in the master bedroom, the kitchen, the family room. But if there's like 9 other empty rooms, we'll pick and choose and do virtual staging. And then what I will do is I will take a poster size photo and I'll put it on an easel in that room. So when they come in and they're looking at the MLS sheet and they're looking at the empty room, they see, oh, okay, this is what it could look like. This is what it will look like. And that's worked really well, because I can talk my clients into, let's just stage this, this, and this. And it's more financially, acceptable to them.
Gotcha. And then what about you on pricing?
I play show and tell. So I show them where I got my information, which is all factual, and I tell them I need to be able to defend the value of the house when an appraiser comes. And a lot of them go, "What are you talking about?" So I explain to them, when the buyer gets a mortgage, they send an appraiser out. I have to meet them and I have to show them at least 3 properties like yours that have sold within the last 6 months in this area that are like yours. So I say, "Here's what I have. Show me what you have." And, I usually can get them to see my point of view. I don't drive them around, but I like that idea. But I'm willing to listen to them because sometimes they know of an off-market listing or their neighbor's house or Sally's granddaughter bought this house. So sometimes there are private sales and off-market listings that I'm not aware of. But usually when I say to them, we need to be able to defend the value up to and including the list price. If someone values your house up higher, then that's a whole nother story.
All right, great stuff. How about a round of applause for our team here? Thank you, guys. Thank you.